welcome back to my channel. My name's Kelly, and today I'm going to be doing the Booktuber Newbie Tag. For those of you who don't know what a tag video is, it's basically when a YouTuber will answer a set of questions that were set up by someone else in the community. For this tag, I'm not sure where the questions originated, but I will put a link to where I found the set of questions in the description. So without further ado, let's get to the tag questions. This tag has a set of 11 questions. Also, I have the questions up on my laptop over here. I also have notes in my notebook over here. So if I'm ever looking somewhere not at the camera, I'm looking at some notes. Okay, so why did I start this channel? It's just been really recent since I've gotten back into reading, specifically fiction. I was an English major in college, so I had a lot of required reading to do, like a lot. And I will be honest that I definitely did not read all of the books that I was meant to read. I read certain sections of the books in order to be able to participate in the discussions in class, but all of that reading, it kind of made me lose some of the joy of reading. Also, with just having to read what was required of me. Like, I didn't ever really have an opportunity to pick out what I like and really decide what I wanted to read because there was so much that I was just required to read in the first place. So, this is a very long ramble to answer that first question. I started this channel because I've recently gotten back into fiction reading and I'm really enjoying it. I'm just finding the love for this art form again, and I want a place to nerd out about it, and Booktube just seems like the best place for me to do such a thing. I love finding communities that really connect with what I'm interested in. So the Booktube community really just drew me in and I wanted to become a part of it. Question number 2. What are some fun, unique things you can bring to Booktube? I feel like I answered this a little bit in the previous question, but I am a former English major. I graduated with a degree in English and a concentration in creative writing, so I can bring a bit of that writer's perspective to things, and also someone who is jumping back into reading, finding the love of it again, and just my unique take on the different things that I read, my different tastes. I love watching booktubers to get book recommendations, so hopefully if you find out that your taste is similar to mine, I'll be able to give you some good recommendations too. What are you most excited about for this new channel? I've wanted to start a YouTube channel for a really long time. I've just been nervous about it and didn't really know what I would talk about, but I'm excited to be exploring this new medium of creativity. I have been streaming now for the past few months on Twitch. You can check me out. I'll put the link in my description. But it's very different, live streaming versus recording a planned video. So I'm excited to try out this new medium of creativity. And also, I'm just super excited for all the books that I'm gonna read. I know, sounding really, really nerdy right now, but literally so many stories, and I just love stories, so I'm really excited to check out some new books. Okay, question number 4 is, why do you love reading? This is a super big question. So many reasons, but number 1, really being able to get lost in a story, being transported somewhere without having to go anywhere. There actually is this really good quote from my college. When we graduated, we all got these tote bags, those of us who were in the English program, and they had this quote on there. I'm gonna read it. "That's the thing about books. They let you travel without moving your feet." I don't know how to pronounce this person's name, so I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna put it down below. But they are the writer of the Namesake, and I grabbed my tote so I could show you. So I used this a ton after I graduated, so it's really ratty and wrinkled because I put it in the wash a few times. But this is the tote all of us English majors got, and it's got the quote, right down there. You probably can't read it, but it's there, trust me. Question number 5 is what book or series got you into reading? The way I interpreted this question was first coming back as someone who's rediscovering their spark of joy from reading, what got me into it again, and that was the book Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I really love the mystery, and after reading that book, I realized I like thrillers, I like mystery novels, so I kind of leaned into that. Yeah, I just really love that book. It really got me back into reading. As far as childhood goes, the series that I remember most reading growing up was the Magical Treehouse series. I think that's what it's called. The Magic Treehouse books. And like I said in that previous question about reading being able to transport you somewhere without going anywhere, that's literally what the Magic Treehouse books did. Like, it was about these two characters, a brother and sister, and they had this treehouse they would go to, and they would be able to travel to these different worlds and learn about history. And I devoured those things as a kid, loved them. My favorite one, they went to, like, the science fair, the World Science Fair, something like that, in Paris, and got to discover someone who I should have looked this up before I filmed this video, but someone who invented, like, I want to say the clock, but I feel like that's really wrong. But they went to the World Science Fair, really cool, super magical, loved the series. Question number 6. What questions would I ask my favorite booktubers? Well, I think I should start by saying who my current favorite booktubers are, give them little shout outs in here, and thank them for inspiring me to start this channel and giving me ideas of what to read for sure. I really like watching Alexandra Rosland, or Lexi as she goes by, and How to Train Your Gavin. I feel like we have really similar tastes, and I was able to get some really good book recommendations from both of their videos. The question I would ask them, I wrote it down. Okay. I feel like they've recently answered this in a video, a live stream I watched, but it is, do you consider yourself a fast, slow, or average reader? Growing up, I really thought I was a slow reader, and I still see myself that way. So just curious, I think that Gavin and Lexi both said that they consider themselves fast readers. So that's very different for me because I can't get through 100 pages in, I don't know what's average, like 30 minutes. It takes me a little bit longer, and I've learned to accept that about myself. What other questions would I ask them? I wrote a couple more down. Okay. Thoughts on liking books geared towards younger audiences. I know that there's certain booktubers who are really into middle grade, like Gavin, and I'm really interested in that genre too, and I just never thought about reading those books as an adult, aside from the Harry Potter series, because literally everybody reads Harry Potter unless you're ancient. So yeah, I want to know what their thoughts are on reading books geared towards a younger audience. Did you feel stigma about that at first? How did you get past it? What made you want to read those books? And how did you really accept that that's what you like to read? Question number 7. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? For me, keeping up with a reading habit, I've definitely been enjoying it a lot recently and read like multiple books just in the past couple months, which is a lot for me. But I know that novelty will eventually wear off, so being able to keep up with the habit of reading so that I have new books to talk about and just keep my excitement for books up. Also coming up with ideas for videos. I'm definitely kind of a perfectionist, so I think, why would somebody want to hear about that? Why is anybody going to care about what I say about that? But that's why I love watching Booktube, is just to hear other people's opinions on books. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give my opinion and hope it appeals to someone, but making sure I stay in that mindset that my opinion is enough and somebody out there is gonna enjoy it. Question number 8 is, when did you start reading? I don't know the exact answer to this question. My mom definitely read to me as a kid, and I looked at picture books and stuff as a kid. I do know that moving from one school district to another, from kindergarten to first grade, I was very behind in my reading skills, and I actually had to take a special class for like a few months in order to get up to par with the rest of my classmates in reading. But I've definitely been reading books on my own since first grade. Where do you read? This is a good question. What's great about reading, like I've said a million times in this video, okay, that's an exaggeration, but I've said it a lot of times, is that you could do it anywhere and be transported somewhere else. So I do read a lot at home, especially nowadays, where we're having to social distance a lot still. I'll read on the couch, I'll read in bed, I'll read at my desk. But somewhere I really enjoy reading is at a coffee shop. We have a great place around the corner from us. I love getting a matcha latte, sitting down with a new book and just cracking it open and reading there for hours. Question number 10 is, what kind of books do you like to read? This is an interesting question for me because I think I'm really starting to discover that again. When I finished Gone Girl and rated it pretty high, I think I gave it like 4 stars. It made me think, okay, why did I like this book so much? I never really think about why I liked a book so much. So I thought about it, thought about some of the other books that I really liked in the past. The last book that I read before Gone Girl that I really enjoyed was The Color of B. Larkin's Murder. I don't remember the author. I'll put it somewhere. That was also like a mystery novel, a mystery murder novel. And so I was like, wow, I guess I like mystery thriller novels. So I want to explore that a bit. I also enjoy reading like magical books that really transport you somewhere. So middle grade, I think, will be really fun for me to read more of, especially as an adult. YA, it depends. I really don't like the cheesy love stories. There's this one author, I can't remember her name, but she published a ton of love story books when I was like in high school. And they were all the same plot, just with different characters, with different little quirks. And I just didn't like it. I know there are some people who absolutely love these books, but YA typical girl meets boy romance just isn't really there for me. I also enjoy magical realism. Some other books that I really enjoyed in the past include The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and that is a middle grade, I believe, and it's got all these ghosts in there, and I think a demon or the Grim Reaper. So things with an element of magic to them also really interest me. Okay, question 11, the final question is, what does your book collection look like? Well, my book collection is right here, right here behind me. I'll try to put like 2 favorites from each shelf. So from my nonfiction, I have The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, something like that. This is it's not a nonfiction though. It's a book that gives practical tips, but it is about a hypothetical team and the 5 dysfunctions that they face and kind of teaches you how to be able to lead a team. This really goes with my day job as a Scrum Master, and it was very insightful. Read this in a book club at work. My other favorite book from that shelf, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I love this book. If you are trying to find practical tips for starting a habit, this is an absolute must read. 100% must read. The shelf right below that one just has a collection, a hodgepodge of fiction books. Some things that I have from college, some things that I picked up more recently. I pulled 2 college reads off of there that I want to highlight. One is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi. Oh my goodness. Her name's a tongue twister sometimes. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And I wrote one of my 2 theses on this book. It is about a young woman named Infamelu, and she writes a blog anonymously about being someone who is not native to America living in America. There's so many interwoven themes throughout this book. It just has so much to think about. I highly recommend. And Adichie is an amazing author. Amazing, great, just not just her writing, but her thought process. So I highly recommend. The second book, I will admit, I did not ever read this cover to cover, but I have read many sections of it and I have restarted it multiple times, but I just love the idea of this book. It is Big Machine by Victor Laval, and my class that I read this in, I read these both for the same class. We actually had the author, he's a professor at Columbia University, and he came into my class to speak, and we got to kind of learn about some of the background of how he came up with the idea for this book. It's got elements of magical realism in there. It has mystery, occult. It has so much. I highly recommend. I do want to eventually read this cover to cover. And I'm really embarrassed to say that I have not done that yet. So the bookshelf under that, third one, right there, that holds my plays and Shakespeare collection. I was acting a lot in high school and stopped that once I went to college, but it was still a really big part of my life, so I do have some of the scripts from when I used to act. One of the most interesting plays I've been in is Almost Maine by John Cariani. There's lots of interesting metaphors and symbolism about love in this book. Play. I think it would just be a great read if you can't see it. It's super short. It's actually a bunch of 1-act plays that kind of intertwine together to create a full-length play. But it's a really, really interesting concept. Highly recommend. And then from that shelf, I also grabbed this big book of Shakespeare sonnets and poems. I do like to pick up the Shakespeare every now and then. I'm not really a fan of reading plays. I just don't like the experience that much. But I do like Shakespeare and just the way he writes in Ionic what is it called? Oh my gosh. Do I even have a degree in English? Iambic pentameter? Is that what it's called? I have to look. Iambic pentameter. I did get it right. Okay. Well, I love reading that every now and then. So I have this big anthology of Shakespeare's sonnets and poems. And I also have a bunch of Shakespeare plays on that shelf as well. Okay, moving on to the next bookshelf, the one right behind me, this one. Again, just some fiction books. I kind of arranged them by color. So these have lots of blue, cool tone colors. One book I pulled off that shelf to highlight is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is a book I just recently read since I got back into reading. It was a recommendation from Gavin on YouTube, and I loved it. I gave this 5 stars. It's so magical. It's like a fairy tale. It just transports you. There is a little tiny dragon that is just like the cutest thing ever, and I want one. So yeah, that's one of the books from that shelf. The other is just something that's a little special to me. When I graduated, all of us in the creative writing program put together this chapbook. So I am published in here. There were 100 copies made. I have copy number 31. So I just think it's really cool that I have my own writing bound in a book like this that other people own. So cool. The story I wrote for this chapbook is a short story, fiction, about a woman who sees this young girl and her mother at a McDonald's rest stop. And it makes her think about her past childhood and things. A slice of life story inside a woman's head with lots of flashbacks. Something I'm really proud of. Okay, below the blue shelf, we have the black covers shelf. And Gone Girl is on that shelf, but I've already talked about it so much I wanted to highlight some other things. So one book I grabbed, I have not read yet, but I'm really excited to. It is Green Glass House by Kate Milford. It is a middle grade mystery novel, and it was recommended by Lexi on YouTube. And it's supposed to be this really cozy winter read about a kid whose parents own a smuggler's hotel or a smuggler's inn. A bunch of criminals come and stay there, and there's some sort of mystery that happens. I'm trying not to learn too much about it because I just really like to experience books without knowing too much of the plot ahead of time, but super excited to read this one. And the next book I grabbed is A Long Black Veil by Jennifer Finney Boylan, who was a professor of mine. I must say, one of my favorite professors I had in college, and I did my senior thesis in her class. She is a transgender woman, author of many books, including memoirs, some middle grade fiction, and this scary number, which is a book about a group of friends that traveled to this abandoned prison, and they lost one of their friends there, and now that kind of just fizzled out. Like, nobody ever found out what happened to this friend who went missing, and now it's years later, and the truth about that missing friend is coming out. Again, another dark mystery suspense book that I really enjoyed. It also is told from different perspectives, which is something else I really love in a book. And another super special thing about this one is it's signed by Jenny herself. She actually did a reading event at the local bookshop near my college right when this came out. So I went to it. She was my professor at the time, and she signed this for me. It was just a really special moment. She was a really special influence, and still is, and I loved this book. Okay, I skipped the next shelf because that's just my Harry Potter shelf, and y'all know what's Harry Potter is, so I don't think we really need to go over that. But my last shelf, which you can't really see, the bottom one down here, is just a bunch of odds and ends, but does include some children's books. So this was a book that I had growing up, and I just really loved it and took it from my mom's house to keep so that when I eventually have a kid, I can read this to them as well. I've even read it to my nieces a few times over video chat. It is Disney Baby's Bedtime Stories. And there are some, I believe, fairy tales, rewritten fairy tales, and then some original ones. I think this one's, The Sandman. The Sandman, and it's called A Visit to Sandland. It just has beautiful pictures, adorable Disney magic. I ripped this page, apparently, drew over here. So lots of memories in this book, but just really fun, and love to have it. The second book I grabbed from that shelf, it's really a nostalgia shelf is a book that I believe I got at one of those book fairs that used to come to your school. It is called Writing Magic by Gail Carson Levine, Creating Stories That Fly. Oh, and it's by the author. Okay, so I didn't know this, but this same author wrote Ella Enchanted. I'm just realizing that now. Pretty cool fun fact. And this is basically a book about learning to write stories, directed towards middle grade. And I've always been interested in writing. I bought it at a time that I was like, I really want to be an author. And that feeling hasn't ever really left me. This book just kind of symbolizes that desire to do something since such a young age. I actually want to see when this was published. 2006. So quite a long time ago. I actually might read this again for some nostalgia. Let's see, what's the back say? This is a book about writing fiction, but it should help you write anything. Emails, essays, greeting cards, love letters, skywriting. How cute. A special nostalgic memento. That is my current book collection. I hope to be adding a lot more, especially when I have more space. I would like to have a beautiful home library. Right now I just have these 2 shelves and books tucked away in nooks and crannies in the house. But this is my main collection, and I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see what I add to it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited to be starting this channel, and I hope that I will get to meet some really fun bookworms while hanging out here on YouTube. I am going to be starting a digital book club, and I'm going to be posting about that on my social media, so be sure to follow if that's something you'd be interested in joining. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye. Stay cozy.